It has been a long time since I've made a video, but I'm here, and I have two. So I've had a lot of questions about how I've made my Mettaton cosplay on Instagram and Tumblr, and on my Cosplay Amino account, so I thought I should make a resource about how I've made mine. I know I've seen a lot of people cosplaying Mettaton, and I really like it because everyone really has their own style, and I think every Mettaton cosplayer really should develop their own makeup style or their own visual style, just because he's a really fun character, and I've had a lot of fun with this cosplay and making it my own. First video is just going to be for the bodysuit and the boot covers that I made. I'll make a separate video for how I do my makeup, things that I've bought, and how I did the chest piece. For the bodysuit, I used Quick Sew pattern K3052. This is one of the simplest patterns I have ever used. As you can see, it only has 3 pieces with it. One that is the front and the back of the collar and the sleeve. It took me only a few hours to make this pattern. I've used it a few times, and it is really easy. The fabric I used is, for the main body of the bodysuit, just a simple black lycra. It has a good 4-way stretch. And for the sleeves, ooh, it's really shiny, I used this silver stretch fabric I found. I did get it from a thrift store in a bag sale. A lot of people were asking me about it, and unfortunately I don't know where it comes from, so I'm sorry. When sewing with stretch fabric like this, you always want to get a ballpoint needle or a stretch needle. The ballpoint is better for stretch fabric because a sharp needle meant for woven fabrics will catch it and it'll make it run and such, so the ballpoint needle is what you want to use. Normally I would say to always press your seams while sewing, but for this I didn't because with the lycra you can't really tell if a seam isn't pressed. Like there, that seam wasn't pressed but you can barely see it and you can barely tell. I did, however, use a seam finish. I just used a straight stitch on it. On this, I used a straight stitch for the whole thing, but while I was sewing I gave a little bit of stretch to it so that when it goes back to its normal, the stitch has been a bit longer. And I used a basic zigzag seam finish along the whole project. Basically, you just make a zigzag along the edge of the seam and then trim it down. I get a lot of questions about how I did the metal segmentation for the arms, and the technique I used is called a tuck. Basically, I took my fabric and I made a small mark with my fabric pen that comes out with iron. Every 3 centimeters or so, each arm has 6 tucks. Then on the mark, I folded it, took a pin to pin it, and made a very, very thin stitch along the edge that when I unfolded it, it gave the look like that. I did that before I sewed the arm seams. Then after I had those, I lined them up, I sewed the arm seams, seam finished and hemmed it, and then added them onto the bodysuit. I finished it off with an invisible zipper. Honestly, you don't have to use one though. The only reason I used one is because it was the only zipper in black in the store that was close to the length I needed. For this pattern, you need a 22-inch zipper. This one was 24 inches. But the only other zippers were too short, or they were just the wrong color, or they were the wrong type, because I did not want a zipper that would split in half. I wanted so it would be an invisible zipper. These are my boot covers. They're not too complicated to make. Basically, I got these black pumps at Walmart. They're about $25. And the pink spandex that I used was the same stuff I used for my chest plate that I had already made. So I put on the shoe, and I took the fabric and I pinned it along my leg. Pro tip, get help for this, because I did it by myself, and I stabbed myself a lot, and it took a lot longer than it would have needed otherwise, but my sister was too busy watching One Punch Man by herself to help me. Once you have the fabric pinned all the way along your leg, you want to trace, or the line of where the sewing will be. Then you sew it using the same method I would recommend as you used for the bodysuit, and I would recommend also using a thick thread for this. You want the boot covers to have a good shape and fit of your leg so they look uniform. This will take a lot of trial and error. As you can see on mine, they've been sewn over and cut many times. That it took me to get them right and get the straight seam on there. They still need a bit of work, as for some of them, on some sides, it's a bit loose. They fall down a bit still, which really annoys me, and I'm still working on it. So that is the first part of how I made my Mettaton cosplay. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I always love to help. You can also ask me questions on my Instagram or my cosplay amino, and I am more than glad to help you. So thanks a lot, and bye!